everybody, welcome back to my workshop and welcome back to my garage. In the last video we went over getting the guitar to this point right here. So what we're going to do in this video is start making some of the measurements we need for starting to route out the body. What I want to do is I want to reestablish my center line, basically from the neck through the body, just to make sure that everything stays straight there. So we'll go through reestablishing the center line on the body to make sure when we set our pickups in there that we're going to route the pickups in the right spot. We're also going to take a look at the bridge to make sure that right now that I have enough break angle in the neck. Right now we won't do anything with the break angle. I'm just going to take a look at it to see if we're relatively close. Right now I think I have a 2-degree break angle in the neck to compensate for the bridge, and we'll see how that goes as we lay it out to make sure it's going to be enough. If not, right now I'm at a great point to just take a little bit more off that, increase that angle just by a little bit on the neck itself. That way when it sits in, it'll give it a little bit more angle and allow that bridge to clear. But we're not going to really fine tune any of that until I get the neck carved and get frets on it. Because the frets are going to add to that height, and I want to make sure that I've got everything to where it needs to be. If I don't have to add an additional break angle into the neck, I won't, but I want to have some adjustment room on the bridge. So let's get rolling and take a look at what we got. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and take a look at making sure that the neck is straight and aligned with the center line on the body and the center line on the neck. There's two things I like to do. First off is I like to do just a preliminary check with my laser level. What I've got is I'll set up a laser level and then I'll lay the guitar out, and I've got the center line traced on the neck and the body. So I've turned off the video lights and I'm going to shine the light down. I'm going to put the camera down on the guitar to see if you can see how it's lined up. Don't know if you can see that or not, but I do have the laser line coming straight down the neck of the guitar. Let me change the angle a little bit. But as you can see, I've got my laser level set, and what I've got is I had my center line still on the guitar, down the neck, down the body of the guitar. The laser shining on that, and it's a nice straight line all the way through the guitar. So this is just a way of telling initially that yes, my neck pocket's where it should be, everything's straight, we should be good to go there. The next thing I want to do is I want to take and lay a straight edge down the side of the neck. And what I'm going to use for that is, because your neck's tapered, so I'm just taking one of my templates, fretboard templates. I know this is going to be a nice straight line. And with it held up against the side of the neck, I'm just going to draw a line as it travels down through on both sides. So now what I've got is I've got my neck taper as it comes back down through, and then I can take my Incra protractor, and I'm at my bridge location right now, and based off the center line, which I had established there, which was spot on the money, and coming off this center line now, I'm at 1 7/32 on both sides. So that tells me that the center line I had established on the guitar initially and the center line I had on the neck, through my building process, everything stayed perfectly straight. So I'm really pleased with that. I'm going to check here as well just to make sure. 1 4/32 at the center line there. So basically I am spot on straight down through there, which is perfect. Just do a double check. Always that old adage, measure twice, cut once. I'm really happy with how straight that is. That came out just perfect. So this is going to be a 24 3/4 inch scale. So I've got my ruler right up against the nut, right up against the edge of the fretboard, which is the nut line. And as I come down here, I'm right at 24 3/4 inch when I check it there. So that means my bridge is good. And then if I wanted to check my 12th fret, it's right there, which is 12 3/8, which is half the distance between the bridge and the nut. And again here, checking it right at the fret, I'm at 12 3/8 between the 12th fret and the nut line. So that tells me I'm right at my 24 3/4 inch scale. So the next thing I want to do is I want to mark the location, or I want to see tentatively if I've got the right break angle cut into my neck. So I'm going to tentatively place my bridge. I'm not going to fine tune this yet because I don't have frets on my neck, so I'm just going to be guesstimating. But this mixing stick is the same thickness as what the bottom of the turn wheel is on the post. So I'm going to set that down, and then I'm going to set my bridge on top of it. And now what I want to do is, just with the straight edge, I want to take and lay it across my fretboard to see where I'm going to be at in relation to the bridge. And right now, that's as low as the bridge is going to be able to go. And with it sitting on the fretboard, I'm up maybe a millimeter right here. Not even. So when I have frets on it, it's going to set up just a little bit higher. Ideally, what I want to have is some up and down adjustment at the lowest point. I don't want it bottomed out for my string action to get as low as it can go. I want to have some adjustment room there. So more than likely, just off my initial assessment here, I'm going to have to increase the break angle on this neck just a touch. Maybe take a 32nd of an inch off the front as it slopes up in. But because that way it'll raise this portion of the bridge a little bit. It'll raise this, just that little bit is all it needs. And I mean, just that little wiggle right there pretty much puts it straight and level. So I'm going to need to do a little bit of fine tuning here, but again, I'm not going to do that until I get frets on the neck carved, and at that point I will also mount my bridge with the correct hardware, have it in tentatively, or a better proximity of it, to where I can have it locked in, so I can have it in place, and then I can actually check my action as I move forward. So maybe a little bit of adjustment here is going to be needed. If it is, it's not going to be a lot. It's just going to be some very minor passes just to get this taper down a little bit more, because you can see right here. Right now I've got about a 2-degree taper between the front and the back. Basically what I need to do is just increase that taper a little bit. So I'll just shave a little bit off this front area here, and that'll pop the neck up just enough. And I want to be careful not to go too far, because I don't want my bridge to have to sit way up in order to get the correct action. So that's why I'm not going to do anything until I get the frets put on this, and then we'll go from there. All right, so far what we've been able to do is establish that my center line is exactly where it's supposed to be. I've got my bridge location tentatively marked at 24 3/4 of an inch. So I'll have the low E will probably be about 1/8 of an inch further back, offsetting that bridge just a little bit. So we'll go from there. What we're going to do now is we're going to put the neck back on, and we're going to take a look at tentatively where we're going to place our neck pickup. Once I get my pickup route for the neck done, then I can go ahead and cut in this heel to where when it drops down into the body, it's going to have room for the pickup and clear there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take this Forstner bit and take a little bit off of this area here, route it out a little bit. All right, so we got that done. And now what I got, seeing how I got the Forstner bit out, I'm just gonna go ahead and route out and hog out some of this material here. Okay, so now to finish it, what I've done is I went ahead and removed the guard, because I've routed the top. So the bearing is going to be able to ride along the top of this. I've got my depth set to right at 3/4 of an inch, which is what I want to be. Now I want to be careful, because when I plunge this down in, it is going to plunge into some stuff. So I want to be careful for that. Don't want the router to move, but I want to have it tipped up when I go in. That way I don't tear anything up. All right, I'll just need to go around that with a little bit of sandpaper, kind of clean up the corners a little bit. As a rule of thumb, when I'm changing out router bits, because the router is probably the most dangerous thing I use in the shop on a day-to-day basis, is I always unplug it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in my 1-inch bit, 1-inch depth bit, because I want to go 1 inch on the neck pocket. So I'm going to put in my bit that goes to 1 inch deep. All right, see if you can see that. Neck pocket, the neck is routed in there very nice. Same thing, I'll have to clean up the edges a little bit, in the corners, to get it to fit in properly. But just a dowel with some sandpaper on there and a couple quick strips around will clean that right up. I think what I'm going to go ahead and do, since I've got the router out and I'm all nice and messy anyway, is I'm going to go ahead and get the back glued on and go ahead and route out the control cavity. So I've got the cavity pretty much routed to depth, a little bit more depth to go, but I'm going to use my big router for that. It's got a bigger base to be able to go down a little bit further. But first I need to mark out my location holes where I want the controls to be, because there's only going to be 2 controls in a toggle switch. So I want to figure out where I want to mark them before I drill any deeper. Right now I've got 3/8 of an inch thickness right there, and I want to take that down to about 1/4. So I want to take about another 1/8 of an inch out of that, and then of course I still got my shelf to route for the control access cover. But that's going to be pretty much the routing done for today. Made quite a bit of a mess. Next thing we'll do, once we figure out where these location holes are going to be, I'll also get out my router table and do the round over on the back of this, because I'm going to put a round over on the back. All right, so I've got my hole locations marked. What I'm going to do with this is I am going with two P90s, of course, and I'm going to do 1 volume, 1 tone, and then a 3-way toggle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my volume and tone in the normal standard positions for what a Les Paul would be, but my switch I'm going to put up in this upper corner. That way it's going to be out of the way, but it'll still be accessible. So the reason why I kind of decided on this switch position of using just the volume, tone, and then the 3-way toggle here, rather than putting it up here, is because I intend to do a bevel on the top portion of this body. That wouldn't allow me to put the switch there. So that's why I've moved the switch down to this location here. And it's also going to make it much easier to do all the wiring on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drill these holes. That way, once those are done, then I can go ahead and finish thicknessing the back here to get it to the right thickness that I want it to be. All right, there we go. Got the switch locations drilled in. I've went ahead and I've sanded out the pickup enclosures to where the P90s will drop right in, because with the template they were really tight. So I just took with some sandpaper and kind of relieved around the edges a little bit, and that way my P90 slips in there just perfectly. The next thing we want to do is I want to go ahead and get this neck heel cut and get the material removed off of here that's going to be part of the pickup cavity. So that way I can get the neck in, make sure everything's nice and flush there, and that way I'm ready to move on to the next step. There we go. All right, we got that section cut out. Let's see how it fits into the neck pocket now. All right, and there we have it. That's a nice fit in there. Just a little bit of file work on that to clean that up, and we're going to be fine. So what I've done is I've went ahead and got my template on. As I've got my cavity routed out, now what I want to do is route the shelf for the control access cover. So I've got this on. I'm just going to run the router a quick pass through here, get that cut, and then we can move to rounding over the edges on the body. Perfect. Just over Just over 1/8 of an inch, so it's going to be a nice sturdy control cavity cover on there. Just what we want. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to just take and round over these edges a little bit, soften them up. So I've got my round over bit on it, and I'm just going to go around the edge of the body and clean that up, and let's just soften the edges. There we go, get the better look at that. That way you can see it just softens that edge up a little bit, makes it a little bit more comfortable. I'm going to be putting a belly contour in this anyway, but I just want to get these edges cleaned up now. That way it's easier to blend stuff in with them. Well, that's going to wrap up this video. We've got quite a bit done. It's looking more and more like a guitar. I couldn't be happier with the progress we made through the course of this video. The body's pretty much to the point of final sanding once I get the neck mounted on it. So please, if you like what I'm doing, click like, click subscribe, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your feedback. In the next video, what we're going to be doing is going to be moving on to the neck, getting the fret markers put in, getting the side dot markers put in, getting the neck carved, and getting it fretted and the tuner holes drilled. So until next time, thank you very much for tuning in, and take care.